Hello everybody, thanks for stopping by Gregsbeerreviews today. It's about that time. Let's go take that walk and see what's in the fridge today. Hello everybody, welcome to Gregsbeerreviews today. Thanks so much for stopping by, I do appreciate it. Today's beer, look at this great big monster bottle, a big 750 milliliter it looks like to me. This is Widowmaker Brewing's Maple Syrup Bourbon Barrel Aged comRAD. And that's a Russian Imperial Stout coming in at 12.8%. This was sent to me by my beer brother Greg. I don't get a lot of their beers here in Virginia. Not seen them anyway. They're definitely not available at the little gas station / beer store or in Kroger's around here. It may be available at the craft beer store. I haven't been over there in a while, so I don't know if they come here or not. These guys are out of Massachusetts. He's up in the neck of the woods. They're up in the neck of the woods where Greg is at, and able to get his hands on evidently. And my favorite big wax covered bottle here, which costs you more money. Everybody knows how I feel about wax on a beer bottle. And Greg, the note he sent here says, not sure why the name of the beer is in small print on the side of the bottle, which is written over here and not on the front label. He said just been released when he bought it on December 7th. They couldn't find anything to indicate a date. He's also not sure what the 04 under the wood series means unless it's their 4th release. Could be. Yeah, his guess is as good as mine. So I'm not real sure about that, and not sure what their distribution footprint is. Is what it is there, guys. If you're into the big barrel-aged Russian Imperial Stouts, this may be a good one. We're going to find out here in just a minute. Once I get through carving the wax off so we can get the top off the bottle. And the commercial description on Untappd says aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. So it's pretty straightforward there, since it says that right on the front here. 12.8%, wood series 04. Maple syrup bourbon barrel aged comRAD. That's what it's called, comRAD. And it's got some kind of Russian chap on the front with his little Russian emblem on his little hat. So we're going to find out what this is all about. I don't think there's anything else we need to talk about, so if you would bear with me while I get the old knife out and start carving. I don't edit beer reviews, guys. We do all this stuff kind of live. I did edit stuff at one time many moons ago, but I don't anymore. If it happens live, you see it live, and if something goes wrong, you see that. So, but everybody knows I'm not a big fan of wax on a beer bottle, because you have to go through this process and may take a chance of cutting yourself or doing something, and it takes an additional couple of minutes to get into it, and people say, oh my god, they do that so people don't duplicate the beers. Really? Do we have a problem with people cloning beers or doing stuff where it's not actually the beer that you're buying? I wasn't aware that was a problem. Maybe some places, I don't know. I don't have any idea whether somebody would take the time to put beer back in a bottle like this and try to resell it, or I don't know, guys. I wouldn't think that would be a problem now. I mean, it ain't like you're buying $1,000 bottle or something where somebody may think it'd be worth their time to try to replicate that or do something where you would be buying something that wasn't actually what was put in the bottle at the brewery. But, you know, I may be naive on that. I'm not sure. I just never have felt that putting wax on a bottle of beer is something that we need to be getting into yet. But that's just my opinion, though, guys. There are other people that feel different. Oh, I like the way it looks. It looks, and well, if it blows your hair back or your socks off, that you paid extra for a bottle that's got wax on it, because they have to have somebody standing at the end of the bottling line, dipping every one of these bottles into some kind of wax container, and they got to pay them to do that. So, all right, let's see if I can get this off without having any wax fall down the inside the bottle. I don't want to drink any wax, guys. So, well, what did it take? A minute or two? Maybe it's not excessive. It's just, to me, kind of useless. Anyway, here we go. And being a 12.8%er, we're going to go right straight down the center unless it starts producing a monster head. Doesn't look like it's going to. Very thick wax on this bottle. Very, very thick. Alright. And this is a big bottle, guys. Nice cascading effect going on here. About a finger of head on that. Very dark beer. Over into the light. Very nice looking Russian Imperial Stout. I hope we're going to get some bourbon and maple syrup notes on this. To the nose we go. Excuse me. A little bit of sweetness. The maple syrup is not off the chain on the nose, but it's cold right out of the fridge. That may open up a little bit and get a little more prominent as it warms up, which we will do. Not a lot of bourbon on the nose, guys. I mean, if you're paying a premium price for a bourbon barrel aged beer, and then wax on top of that, roasted malt, very slight hint of some maple syrup. Like I said, it's not off the chain or anything, and not getting any bourbon on the nose right now. So, let's get it to the lips. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, Greg. Maple syrup, roasted malt. A very, very subtle hint of maybe some bourbon in there, but you got to be looking for it. I was expecting more bourbon notes on the beer than I'm getting on the taste. It's very smooth for a 12.8%, almost 13% beer. Very smooth, very easy drinking. But I've had more prominent maple syrup aged beers or barrel beers, and definitely bourbon notes more stronger on some of those. But maybe being bourbon and maple in the same barrel, I'm not sure how they barrel age that or not. According to the bottle here, it says maple syrup bourbon barrel aged. So maybe it had maple syrup in it one time, and then it had bourbon in it at one time, and now it's had beer in it. So I don't know, unless they actually brewed it with maple syrup and then just put it in a bourbon barrel. I don't know what their process is to get a maple syrup bourbon barrel. If it was maple syrup barrels they aged it in, then bourbon barrels, or it was just maple syrup added to the recipe during fermentation, and then barrel aging on top of that. I don't know what kind of barrels they've used, or how long they left it in the barrels. The maple syrup in the bourbon right now, cold out of the fridge, is very subtle. He does not tell me what he paid for this beer. I'm sure it was not a cheap bottle of beer to buy. At this stage of the game, I'm not sure that I would spend a lot of money for this, with the bourbon and the maple syrup being as subtle as it is. But, like I said, it's cold out of the fridge, so let's let it warm up, and we'll come back and find out what we end up with. Alright guys, I'm back. Been sitting on for a while now. Not a whole lot has changed. I am getting just a little bit more of the maple syrup, but not a whole lot on the bourbon barrel notes. For what this beer probably cost, it was probably not worth what Greg paid for this beer. it is a decent beer. It is a well-made beer as far as the alcohol being well hidden. But I've had a lot better maple syrup beers and bourbon barrel beers. So it does have the alcohol 12.8% on the thing here, but it doesn't have any kind of dating on it. Tell us what vintage it is. It does say maple syrup bourbon barrel aged comRAD, but it does have 04. You may be able to go to their website and determine when it was put in there. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to jump through those hoops. They would have the vintage somewhere on there, either stamped on the bottle or on the label, which this one does not. So don't think it's an A+ beer. Probably don't think it's even an A beer, guys. Final check. Not much bourbon. Little bit of maple syrup. I would probably not buy this beer. There are better beers out there that have a bigger maple syrup presence and a bigger bourbon barrel presence than what this is. It is well made because the alcohol is well hidden for a 12.8, almost a 13%er. Very smooth and easy drinking for that magnitude of a beer. But you're paying a premium price for a 20 or 750 milliliter bottle with wax on it, and to be bourbon barrel and maple syrup and all that kind of stuff on top of it. I think it's, he didn't tell me what he paid for it, but I think it was probably more than what I would pay for this beer now that I've had it. A- for me, guys. I'm going to just barely put it into the A- grade at 90. When I went over to Beer Advocate, the only person that's commented on this beer was my brother Greg, and he gave it a 4 out of 5. My scale goes to 10, so A-, 90. That's where I'm going to put this beer. If you're expecting big maple syrup notes, you're not going to get them. And if you're expecting big bourbon barrel notes, not there. So, well made, but not to where I think it should be. They should have left it in. They should have had more maple syrup taste in it, since they're claiming that on the label, and they should have more bourbon barrel notes, since they're claiming that on the label. Maybe that's not where they want it to be. They didn't want the bourbon overpowering everything else, but if you're paying a premium price for a beer, especially in this size of a bottle with wax on top of it, I think those notes should be prominent. So, I can't recommend this beer, guys. I think it is well made because the alcohol is well hidden and it's smooth and easy drinking, and slight hints of the maple notes, not much bourbon. So, 90 for me. A-. Over to Beer Advocate, since Greg is the only one that's commented on this beer, no scores. Over to Untapped, they have it at 4.13, which is also in their A- range. I agree with that. It is an A- beer. So, if you've had the maple syrup barrel aged comRAD from Widowmaker Brewing, let me know what you think. Till we meet again, let's go see what's in the fridge.